Removing the documents in one of your MongoDB collections is an incredibly easy process. We can just say db.collectionsName, for example, users, and then we just say remove. Now I'm not actually going to hit enter here because I don't want to end up with an empty collection, but that would work. Let's start by saying how many users do we have? Okay, we've got 3 users. So the other way to remove users is, of course, to pass a query object to the remove method and only have specific documents removed. Why don't we remove the John object? If I go ahead and remove that, you can see now when we do users.count, we only have 2 instead of 3, and so we know that this remove method here did indeed remove the document that had the first name of John. Now remember that find and modify method that you were introduced to in the first video on updating documents? We can actually use that method to remove documents as well. So I'll say db.users.find and modify. For the query object, we will find the document where the name.firstProperty is equal to a regular expression that includes a capital B. That would be our Bob Smith document. Now we'll just say remove true as our second property here. And that's all. I'll close the object and you can see that the Bob Smith object is returned here. So before it's deleted, it is returned because that's what find and modify does. It returns the document that it worked on. And if we run db.users.count, you should see that we are down to 1 user. Yes, we are. So that's deleting individual documents or all of the documents in a collection. But when you delete all of the documents in a collection, for example, if we just did db.users.remove, we wouldn't actually delete the collection itself. The collection would still be there. So how would we delete a collection? Well, let's create another collection here that I'll just call other, and we'll just give it a very simple document that has a name of Andrew. So now if I say show collections here, you can see that we currently have 4 collections. The links and users collections, which we created, system.indexes, which is the indexes for the system. We'll be talking about those in the next screencast, and then the other collection that we just created. So let's go ahead now and say db.other.drop. And this is just going to drop the collection completely from the database so that now when we run show collections, you can see that we completely got rid of that collection. This would not happen if we just used the remove method to remove all of the documents within the collection. The drop method does remove all of those documents, of course, but it also deletes the collection container as well. Of course, the last thing you may want to delete is the whole database itself. So let's choose to use another database. We'll switch to our database other. And now we need to put something in this database. So we will just have db.test.insert, and we can just insert an empty object. So now if I run show DBs, you can see that we have this other database in the list here. And if I run DB, you can see that it is the other database. So the way to delete a database is just to run the db drop database command. I'll run that method. You can see that we get a little bit of JSON output here telling us the database has been dropped. If I run db, it still says it is other. However, this is just kind of like in the state before we've actually inserted anything into the database. The database exists in concept, but not really in memory. And you can see that now if I run show DBs, you can see that other is no longer listed here. So that is how we can delete actual databases. While we're on the topic of deleting, I might as well remind you that if you want to delete specific fields from within a document, you'll have to do an update using the unset operator. And we talked about that in the first update video, so you can see that for details. And that's all I can tell you about deleting in MongoDB.